Saludos, buenas. Este es mi primera vez haciendo live. First time doing live. I know most of y'all speak, I believe, Spanish more. I'm trying to look where the webcam is at. Uh, I'm more comfortable speaking in English, but I will speak Spanish. Este, Estoy más acostumbrado a hablar en español que en inglés, pero bueno, quería saber cuántas personas están aquí que hablan en inglés o en español. Pero bueno, este, It, I'm going live just to figure it out, just to see what it's all about. First time trying it, and I guess I can discuss about where my YouTube channel is going. I think I've mentioned it before with the interviews I've had with Tabita, and I think I mentioned it before too in other places where, uh, I might not be making any more videos. Initially, it was even the name of the channel. Even it doesn't say anything related to LDM because I was already thinking back then that hopefully, fingers crossed that I'd be able to get out of the LDM bubble and move on. But it's a big thing, being born and raised in a cult like that. Este, Hablaré acerca del canal, donde pienso ir en el futuro con el canal, porque he estado en entrevistas con Tabita, y creo que también en otros videos que he subido donde no estoy seguro si seguiré haciendo más videos, am, debido a que aún el nombre del canal no incluye nada acerca de la luz del mundo o sectas, porque aún en ese tiempo tenía la esperanza de que un día ah, podría yo salir adelante y ya no hablar acerca de la luz del mundo, no tanto así, aunque es algo muy difícil porque crecí dentro de esta secta, pero con la esperanza de que, no, pues, no tanto dejarlo ya atrás, porque una de las cosas que yo he aprendido acerca de poco tiempo que estoy aquí, que tengo 30 años, es que la esperanza de que, pues, salir adelante, pero a la vez también reconociendo y viendo atrás la historia mía, ah, y aprendiendo de esas experiencias. So, uh, I'm looking at the chat. I appreciate it. Thank God I learned English, so I think I'll speak more English. I'll probably go back and forth translating, only because I got used to it when I was an interpreter back in church. It was easy for me. It was something that was completely difficult at first when they told me to start interpreting. This was back when we had a brother that is an American. I'm not sure if he's still a white American. I think he still attends church, but it was one of those things that they put me in, like, hey, you speak Spanish and English. Uh, and at the time, I'm like, terrible Spanish. English is very street like, but I was always the kind of guy to say, it was hard for me to say no. I'd always say yes, especially if it came from a minister. So uh, from then on, it just became, practice makes perfect, or at least close to it. And it helped. It really helped to the point that my later years in LDM, when I was an interpreter, I had to add a little pizzazz, put a little bit of flavor in it so I can um, increase, I guess, allow the people that don't speak the language to also experience what the minister or the apostle, the so-called apostle, or anybody who's taking church, for them to also feel what the rest of the members were feeling. So that's how I think at the time. It's been a while since I've interpreted back and forth. I guess I still have a little bit of that in me. Um, hey, Chaz, and Stephanie. So thank you. Well, I'm glad that was like the whole purpose of my channel was making videos at the beginning. So the reason why I made this channel was for many reasons. Uh, and it comes down always to that with, I think I'm an overthinker. And one of the many reasons, I guess I'll name as many as I can think of, but the top of the head, One was realizing that I know how cults tend to gravitate people back when you leave a sect, because you're leaving a world. It's its own little globe, it's its own little world, right? Where it has a community. And that's part of the biggest thing that attracts people is the community, which is something that when you look back biologically, we're humans, right? And you need a community, you need to interact as much of introvert as you can be, and I tend to be sometimes every now and then. We're humans, and we need to, interact with other people, and it's easier to interact with the people that share the same idea, beliefs. Everybody's different, right? But if your framework is similar, then it's easy to interact and have those kind of uh, conversations. I know it's not always the case, right? Because just like in a workplace, at a university, at school, any other area, really, there are going to be differences amongst people. People are individuals. We're all living in our own worlds to an extent, but in a community such as LDM, especially a sect where it's all very enclosed, where this is where you're supposed to be, and interacting with the rest is almost a no-no. It's a big red flag. Like, don't do that. And if you have to, do it as minimal as possible, right? Uh, but I also had read, at least at that point, I guess the evidence that it's usually around 2 years. Not sure if that's changed, but I'm pretty sure it's pretty consistent that usually within the 2 years you have that desire to go back to a community like that, to a sect, a cult like LDM. So I figured this was back when I made my XLDM post, back when I wrote on XLDM this long, um, what paragraphs of why I left LDM, my reasons. Um, that was like the actual seed that gave birth to the channel, was for me to look forward that probably, most likely within 2, 3 years, I would probably have that desire to want to go back to a community that I was born and grew up in. And I knew that the only way I could probably never go back to it is if I put my face out there, my name, my face, my story, and talking about this cult. And it helped. It helped because there were moments that I wanted to go back. It's there. It's there. The data doesn't lie. The numbers don't lie. And I remember, like, within the 2 3 year gap, I was like, oh man, there it goes. But made the videos. Oh well. I'm looked at by some members. Quite honestly, I'm really amazed that not a lot of people actually, at least within this community here where I grew up in Marietta slash Atlanta, however you want to see it. Uh, Not everybody, a lot of people though, I will say, a good number of people see me as like the devil for having spoken about the apostle, their biggest figurehead, right? And but not everybody. I actually interacted with a lot of members in stores, restaurants, and I've gotten different reactions. Definitely one sister, one lady definitely looked at me as if I was the devil. And then probably months later, I saw her at the gym, and she just kind of like gave me a casual, nod. So that was interesting. That was the funniest. That was the funniest interaction I had the first time with her. I was at Sam's Club, and she looks at me, and she's like frozen in paralysis, like she saw the devil. Um, and I just kept on going, and I had to contain my laughter as I was buying groceries. Other people have ignored me just as if I don't exist there. Some have actually come up to me. I had one brother actually come up to me about we're in 2024. Maybe it was 2 years ago. I want to say it was 2 years ago. He came up to me, we talked a little bit, and then he leaned into me because his son was there, and he whispered, he's like, "Hey man, there's keep doing what you're doing, keep making these videos. There's a lot of us in here that don't believe in this, but we're still here because we got families in there. But keep doing you. We look at your videos, da da da." I'm like, "Oh man, I appreciate that." And we went on. I've had other interactions with other brothers and sisters who uh, uh to be honest, I think I interacted with a couple, an older couple that I saw in TJ Maxx, and this was definitely one that caught me most by surprise. Almost as surprising as the lady, but in a good way. Very strict brothers and sisters. A strict, definitely the brother. This couple, this older couple that uh, talked to me almost like a father figure. Um, was happy to see me. Was happy to see that I was doing good. Both him and his wife, and I think his grandson was there, and that took me by surprise. So that was nice. That was nice. It was nice seeing that there's more open mindedness, I believe. And I don't know how they're dealing with the whole Nason and LDM, but I know it's there's something there. Especially coming from a guy like me that makes these videos and has talked about the apostle, and I don't even talk about him like bad, like I'm bad mouthing him and saying all these curse words, right? Although well deserved, right? Well earned. But uh, such is life, right? And it's nice seeing that. So it's been a little bit of everything when I've interacted with these guys. So it's nice to know that I guess it's helped people like you guys that are saying on chat that has helped you, and seeing how some of these guys, some of these brothers, some of these sisters are um, talking to me, interacting with me, at least greeting me from afar. So that's good to see. Good, really interesting to see, because I'm thinking, they have sex cults like LDM have like a hold on on the sovereignty of the individuals, and whatever the church says, the people have to believe. But it seems like there's like a breaking from it. So that's nice. That's pretty dope to see. So that was one reason. So I wouldn't return. Two, the Jane Does. I remember, I'm like, dang, they're doing this. They're, the, you know, again, I applaud them, their bravery. I mean, I can't imagine being in their shoes. Never been. I can't put myself in the shoes of these Jane Does, Jane and John Does that I've never been in a situation like that. So that's an intense situation to be, something that I applaud and brave for. I'm like, at least can I do my part, So that was another reason why I made a channel like this, and also why it wasn't anything related to LDM, like I said before, because maybe there's a possibility that I would make videos that aren't related to LDM and just, I don't know, make skits or do something else if it came to that point. So uh those are at least, I guess, the top three in my head that I can think of why I made this channel and why I named it that way. It's a fun way of saying it too. I don't know if I'm gonna interact and translate all that, but I figured there were going to people that are going to tune in there in Spanish. So, lo que andaba diciendo en corto de lo que andaba hablando a las personas en inglés es que las razones en el cual yo hice esos videos era, pues tengo mis razones. Una de las cuales es que yo sé que cuando uno deja una secta como la luz del mundo, la, los números dicen que por lo normal hay gente que regresa nuevamente a esas sectas entre 2, 3 años. Y lo primero que yo pensé es que yo soy una persona I'm not special, no soy especial, entonces probablemente vendrá ese deseo de regresar otra vez a un culto como la luz del mundo. Y una de las razones por el cual yo escribí mi post en el Reddit de XLDM, y también por eso el cual yo hice mis videos, hice mi canal y subí mis videos para que, por si acaso, no, ni por si acaso, porque en ese entonces pensé que lo más probable es que voy a regresar nuevamente con ese sentir de regresar a la secta. Y poniendo mi cara, mi nombre, sería una razón por la cual sería casi imposible, quizás difícil para regresar a la secta, a la luz del mundo. Por eso hice esos videos, y aparte también cuando los Jane John Does, cuando contra el caso de Nazón, pues, una admiración de mi parte pues, toma mucho valor, mucha fuerza para hacer algo así, para ponerlo ahora está en cárcel, imagínense que ya está en cárcel, y yo pensé, no, pues, por lo menos me gustaría, pues, hacer unos videos y de una manera o de otra apoyar esta causa, am, pero también a la vez, la verdad no veo los otros canales de los otros miembros que se han salido. Estoy más enfocado en lo mío, tratando de averiguar mi pasado, como lo que soy, y en parte es debido a cómo crecí, y crecí dentro de esta secta. Entonces hay partes donde quiero saber qué es lo mío y qué es lo de la secta y aprender de ahí y bueno, sobresalir. Es mi forma de pensar, es mi forma de, pues sí, mi forma de pensar y evaluar mi vida y cómo salir adelante. Am, y luego también el nombre que puse en el canal, mi canal, pues también pensé que pues no va a ser siempre videos de la luz del mundo. Un día quizás si sigo con este canal, si sigo será de otras cosas, pero por el momento pues son esas las tres razones por el cual hice este canal. Saludos, good afternoon. Um, but I'm glad that my videos have helped you guys a lot, and it's nice. It's nice. También, he tenido la oportunidad de hablar con muchos diferentes miembros de la luz del mundo en diferentes lugares, sea en el supermercado, en una tienda, en un restaurante. Ah, una hermana hace un año, quizás, o hace 2 años, donde me vio en un supermercado bueno, el rostro de su cara era algo muy pues la reacción de ella fue casi como si vio al mismo diablo cuando me vio frente a frente. Aunque sí, eh, ha habido otros hermanos que me han ignorado cuando me ven. Ha habido otros hermanos que me han saludado. Había una pareja que me agarró de sorpresa cuando me saludaron ahí en una tienda TJ Maxx y fue algo muy, muy bonito, porque bueno, por lo menos el hermano aquí dentro de la iglesia es conocido como un hermano muy estricto y me dio mucho gusto que me saludó casi como viendo casi como un padre viendo a un hijo. Y pues me dio mucho gusto que me saludó como una persona normal, casi como un hermano, porque me saludó con la paz del Señor. Entonces fue algo, fue bonito. Hablé con ellos como con 1 minuto, 2 minutos. Ahí estaba su nieto y uno de sus nietos, y pues ahí hablamos y fue algo muy bonito. Entonces, viendo cómo también había otro hermano, creo que hace 2 años, cuando me nos encontramos en una tienda, en un supermercado, un Walmart, y ahí estaba uno de sus hijos, y ahí empezamos a hablar, y luego se me acercó en el oído y me dijo: hey, tú sigue adelante con tus videos, aquí hay una mayoría de personas, hermanos aquí en Atlanta, que no creemos, pero estamos aquí en esta situación, pues porque tenemos familias aquí, esposas, hijos, abuelas, mamás, papás, ah, etcétera, etcétera, que aún creen, pero hay muchos aquí que no creemos. Entonces, ah, adelante, te apoyamos y aquí estamos. Entonces fue algo también muy bonito. Um, so yeah, and looking also now that I'm here, uh, I got what, 833 subscribers. So what does that make me? A pastor now? I can get diezmos. I think that was something I was playing around with that idea as a joke, obviously, when I first initially made this channel and I saw like it got up to like 50 the first time, around 50. I'm like, okay, that puts me as obrero. So if I get to like 100, 200, I'm maybe an encargado. Get to 500, I'm a deacon. 800 to 1,000, I'm a pastor level. There's still that LDM ingrained in you, at least to me, because I was completely involved in this stuff. So, and that's one of the things that I see when I interact, when I think about my past, when I think about the framework that I grew up in. And I think a lot of people like to see it as, when I've heard some of their stories, almost completely deny that past. Um, Personally, I think you got to look at your past, face your fears. Sometimes it's yourself. I know in my case, that's me. I'm like, damn, I'm, my biggest downfall. And I would love to. I would like to move forward and just become a better person, right? And there's some things that I know that the only way I can move forward is to look in the past and try that out. That might be the historian in me, um, trying to dissect my past and see where I made my errors, find some accountability, and see if I can learn from that and find the best ways to prevent. Obviously, I'm a human, so mistakes are bound to happen, error and trial, right? But trying to move forward to a path that I can see forward, where I'm like, all right, I can have a wife, I can have kids. Like one day it would be nice to have this, and that. And how do I get to that, right? Uh, so I start dissecting stuff like that because that's where I want to go with, right? That seems the thing with I've had to completely change in my goal because with LDM, the way I was taught and raised and the way I was moving within the LDM hierarchy was to one day, my biggest goal, my biggest dream as a little kid, I remember was being the biggest help for the apostle because, you know, the biggest thing you can be in LDM isn't the apostle. That's at the time you're thinking, well, only those called by God, and really it's you got to be a Joaquin, right? But well, what's the best thing after that? His helper, his, either a minister or something along those lines. And I remember, like, I don't think I have to be a minister. Maybe I could be a choir director, or maybe I could be an advisor of some kind. And I remember that was like the biggest goal I had as a kid because I thought, well, what's the most important thing? And as a kid, I was indoctrinated to believe that it was the apostle. It was serving the apostle. So I really got into studies, and I was a good kid. Even in elementary school, I was at top of the class. But for some reason or another, middle school changed. But I still kept focused with church, so that was like still my primary driving focus. I'm like, I can leave school second, if not third. But my main focus would always be LDM, so I could at least learn the Bible, study the studies, uh, all the activities with it, so I can one day become that big help. Um, and that was the objective, was to be this almost bigger than life kind of person, all for the purpose to serve the apostle. But that was my thought process. And now it's enjoy the journey. It was more about the destination back then. And I think that's, and at the same time enjoying the journey. I can't deny that. I did enjoy a lot of things, going to Guadalajara, being part of choir, getting to meet new people, interact with a lot of friendships were made, a lot of connections were made, a lot of experiences, all sorts of things. So that was one of the things um, that I think because there's a lot of positives. Like I'm not gonna shed. I like to be very objective about things, um, even if the truth hurts. And I think that there are a lot of good things in it, the discipline behind it too. But if now that I'm outside of it, I'm like, okay, I can use some of that, those things that I learned and used in church and redirect it to something else. Just grab the good things, take out the bad, right? And then learn. And it's been useful. There are a lot of good uses. And one of the things that I always thought was like, choir was like my biggest passion. Singing music was my biggest passion. Still is, really. And I remember thinking, was it because of the apostle that I loved music? Or was it something intrinsically me? Was this who I am? Is this just who I am? And now I'm part of I graduated when I went back to college, graduated, and now I'm part of their alumni choir. And I realized now that's just who I am. That's just a part of me. I love singing. I love uh, to and it was one of those things that I like to better myself too. I always look forward to someone who's better than me so I can learn. Because if I'm the best, then I feel stuck, right? Like I don't feel like I should be here. I need to be somewhere where I can learn, somewhere where I can. I'll be at the bottom of the barrel if that's to be with the best of the best, so I can learn, so I can be willing to learn. Let's see. Why don't you continue to be a advisor of your truth? And you could get to help out a lot of people or in balance of what to do. See, I've thought of that. Chas chas. I like playing on words. I like dad jokes, lame jokes. It's part of my name, Abisai. For those that don't know, Abisai means has two different meanings. It means uh, my father's blessing or a gift from God. But the first half, Abi, means father, dad. And I played around with them. Like, you guys, I've told since a lot of people can't say Abisai in English, it's very new to a lot of non-sect folks, non-LDM, non-church folks. Really non-LDM folks, because it's not a very common name even within other Christian denominations. Uh, it's a play on words, so like just call me Abi. And I played around with that. I'm like, you guys are calling me dad at that point. They're calling me daddy. But I like the name Chas Chas, and I've thought about that. Going back to what you said, I don't know. I've really thought about that. I'm just one guy, right? Just talking to a screen who ends up talking. A couple of people are listening, and then when it's uploaded, a couple more people are listening. And I think I'm only 32. I'm only 30 as well. I'm not 32. I'm only 30, and what can a 30-year-old teach, right? What can a 30-year-old, and that's why I talk about my experiences, because that's my, if I'm being as objective, as honest as I can with my experiences, um is by doing that, is by being that, it's by facing my fears, is by facing the truth. And it's sometimes my fears, it's sometimes my past, my present, so I can find out how to have a better future. And I mean, there is some truth to your own truth, but I also think there's a truth that can lead you to, look, I'm going back to I'm started I'm my destination, my journey, not destination, my journey at the moment is starting to redirect itself back to God. And because for the longest, when I stopped believing in LDM, I was agnostic, very big time agnostic. For a very small time, I was an atheist. But that quickly, I was like, I can't be an atheist. That's almost that's being, if you're being the opposite of LDM, that still feels wrong. So I was like, no, let's take it back a notch. At least be agnostic. At least believe that there might be something bigger out there. And it wasn't until very recently that when they say pay attention, you gotta really pay attention to your surroundings, and that's something I've really been doing a lot lately in everything from movies that I'm watching, shows, to the people I interact with at work, or some random people at restaurants or customer service, blah blah blah, with my family, and listen to those things, and try to see where can that advice take me. Because as I'm learning, life isn't like a linear path where it's going to have its ups and downs like a graph, right? It feels more like this. It's a cycle, it's a circle of life, like the Lion King. It happens to be like this, rotating, moving forward and forward, but in circles. History repeats itself, like, and it goes back to why I loved history, why I became a historian in that aspect. At least studied, I'm not practicing, but I still like to learn a lot from it. And I'm starting to see that it's this, it's just, and I'm like, all right. And reaching 30 kind of almost like, they really say, like, I get, it's like now I'm living the experience of what a lot of people say when they say, You're gonna know when you hit 30, or you're gonna know when you have a child, when you have a kid." Well, I'm not there yet, but hitting 30 made me realize, okay, we really gotta take the advice of these people if I ended up sort of wasting my 20s in a way. I wouldn't say wasting, because you still can learn from anything. You can learn from anything. That's my belief. Your mistakes, your past, as long as you can try to move forward, and at least try your best, right? And make the effort, really make the effort. And if there's any advice I would like to give that feels like helps people, is to work out. People need to see physical change before they can see different changes. And I'm one of those people. Um, And I remember it was something I always struggled, like, last since ever I left high school, when I really wanted to make the change of a physical change, was working out. Uh, it never happened until very recently, maybe 2, 3 years ago. I'm like, "Oh, okay." Starting to listen to these motivational videos, seeing the changes in people. Because I did, there was I made, I had a small weight loss journey within my teens, but it wasn't until now that we made a drastic different change. And seeing taking the advice and putting into action the philosophy behind working out made me realize, well, what else is there in the different levels of reality? There's the physical self, and then what about the other stuff? So I've been really paying attention to my surroundings, to people, whether it be, like I said, TV shows, people, my family members, strangers, and taking that advice, and hoping I can not repeat many of my mistakes, many of my big mistakes, in my opinion, of my past. Um, and trying to understand that I need knowing that I can't move by myself. It's impossible. It's there everywhere in stories. Anything that has a myth that has been repeated over and over for the last thousands of years. Because there's a difference between stories motivated by myth that we can kind of see where it stems from and comes from, where its roots are from. And then there's propaganda, where it's just stories being told, propaganda like Frozen, where it's just told to sell a commercial, to sell an agenda, to sell an idea rather than the story. Because we think, because we're living in the modern age, that everything has to change, traditions have to die, the new has to come in. And I don't believe that's so. Um, there are going to be changes with time. It takes usually the genius of one person, where, oh, now there's a change, the genius of a person, the genius of an artist, that makes that change. And then there's small things, but it continues on, the same things, the stories, those themes continue forward and go on. um Alright. I tell people I'm still open. I think I have severe ADHD, and I get to talk what I'm saying and thinking, and then seeing what people are saying. I tell people I'm still open to believing in God, but I won't blindly believe just because a book says so. It needs to make sense and have divine signs for reals, not just make believe. I agree. Coming from a sect, coming from a cult like LDM, it's oh man, it's that's the hardest thing. And I think if there's any if there's something I'm learning, is that whatever LDM was saying that they disliked the most, that they hated the most, there had to be a reason. I think sometimes we don't give enough credit to the puppeteers behind LDM and the structure of it, those that run LDM behind the scenes, because we think it's the apostles. It's not someone obviously would. Maybe someone was a big part of it. I don't think that someone was. He was just I feel like definitely was a puppet, but I feel like those that were running behind the scenes, um, or smart people and understand it, because you don't just get to a million members out of nowhere, out of dumb luck. There is purpose behind it. You can, out of dumb luck, you can probably get 1,000, couple thousand, maybe. And that's still being exaggerated, but a million? I'm not saying 5 million, because I still don't believe to this day it's 5 million members. Maybe a million. Two, we're really, I don't think two, but closer to a million, give or take. And I believe that there's a reason, a purpose behind everything they did. And that also means a purpose behind the things that they dislike the most. So one of the things that made me think, when I started almost feel like I'm listening to God, there have been moments that I've almost felt like a tap on the shoulder from God, something divine. Whenever I'm thinking or writing, or having questions, almost feels like when I'm being honest with myself and I have these questions, I feel like a tap, or like it's God talking to me. And one of those things that the LDM really hated, when someone talks about someone with hate, it's insecurity from themselves, right? So when they talk about the Catholic Church, uh, we grew up thinking that the Catholic Church is like this big, traditional church that even today in the world is like thinking that the Catholic Church is just full of pedophiles and da da da. You have the straw man argument, but I've started. I've only gone to mass like 2 3 times just to see it, and it's still weird to me because here's the thing: we're used to having a charismatic guy like Nason or somewhere. In my case, maybe some of you who are older, uh, Aaron, right? But most likely someone in Nason. We're used to having a charismatic guy to make you feel something about God, and you think that what you feel is God, right? And it might be, it could be, but probably there's a sociological term called collective effervescence, which means um, it doesn't just happen in religion. It happens usually when you're in a group of people. Sometimes in stadiums when you're watching a soccer game, when you're feeling like everyone's feeling the same thing. It's a transcendent experience with the collective. Collective meaning a group of people, effervescence, like a feel, like a divine feel. So that's probably what we experience as a group from a charismatic leader. Now, the thing with mass with Catholic Church, I haven't got, and I'm trying to, also interact with different churches because that's just my thing. Um, how do I know if I don't experience it? How do I know about something if I don't see it firsthand? Because nowadays, a new story can come out, right? And it's easy to just believe it. But if you do a little bit of research, maybe there's more to it than that, and that tends to be more true than not. uh, until you find sources where like, okay, this person is being more honest, this site, this website, these news are more objective than these others, right? So one of the things I've been doing is I've gone at mass a little bit just to check it out. And the thing with mass is it's always, there's a formula, right? And that's the thing that deep inside of me, that's a LDM ingrained me, is like, I need a charismatic guy to make me feel something. I need, this, and that. I need this liberalness, this liberty of being myself, right? In a sense, within the structure that is LDM or something similar. But the structure of mass, though, is it's always about the death of Christ every day, which was something that, LDM was slowly changing its way to the election. And that's something I think really, to be honest, fucked with everybody. So you have the ultimate story of the good. When you think about the ultimate good guy versus the ultimate bad guy, it's Jesus and the devil, right? In any story, right? There's a reason why we're in the year 2024. Uh, Christianity one. There's a something that a comedian said. I think it was Louis C.K. Like, we're in the year 2024. Christianity one, right? In that sense, just being funny about it. But the year 2024 AD, after the death of Christ, how many countries in this entire world follows that format? 2024, 2024 years after the death of Christ. Almost every country in this world, right? There's a reason why it stayed alive. It's not mass manipulation. It's not, oh, they have the whole population mass hypnosis and it's gone on from generations to generations. There's a respect within other denominations too. When you visit the school thought of Confucianism, uh, Buddhism, Islam, Judaism. But the biggest story that we can see right now, at least with numbers, is Christianity 2024. That's just as an example. Now, this story has still survived after 2024 years, and it's still being told. You have the ultimate good guy defeating the ultimate bad guy, right? And LDM slowly diminished the story, the biggest, best story in terms of how to defeat evil with good, right? By putting a guy like Samuel or Nason as, they wouldn't say it, right? Because it's, according to them, it's God, Jesus, and then their apostle. But the way they talked about, the apostle, the election, it was more like the apostle, God and Jesus, right? And that was like the biggest. mental crime in my mind is the father figure being taken away completely and putting instead Joaquin, this dude, the Samuel and the son, all because we need an apostle, all because Jesus Christ already died, and he always had his disciple, he always had his apostles, his servants of God. So we need someone to interact and talk to God and make up. And here's the thing: make up whatever we need to make up because there is no format. There are no set rules within church. They're like, oh, this is how. There really isn't any of that. It's based off the Bible and feelings and whatever all of a sudden God said to Samuel or Nason. And that's first off, there's a way to do it, and they were doing a pretty good job until very recently, in my opinion. Hence the reason why Nason is in jail and people are leaving, right? There would have been a better way, but they sucked at that. They're failing at that. It's still gonna, a cult's a cult, especially something as big as this. It's too big to fail like that for now, I think. But you robbed us of that story and put this man as, and it's more than that. Also, now you make me think. Now you made me think that my actual dad, my father, my own flesh and blood, the where I come from, this dude's ball sack, right? I came from this dude's balls, and now and now I got to push him to the side because it's Nason and Samuel, the the biggest figurehead, the best father, the guy who taught me how to make a tie according to them, the guy that gives me breath and life, all the way from he's the one that who taught you how to make a tie, as I would say, all the way to he is the breath inside of you. You replaced, not only did you replace your own physical father if you grew up with your dad, but now you also took out the story of Jesus, the ultimate story, the myth, the mythology, and the actuality, if you want to believe in that too. And maybe that's where I'm leaning towards too. That's my journey at the moment, but at least on that side of looking at it as a story, just story, not literally. um if we can just look at it as a story, you took that away. You took that story away, put it to the side, almost as trash, and you had only to remember him once a year, right? And maybe a couple of weeks before heading towards the 14th or whenever they do a Santa Cena. And maybe that's why they're doing Santa Cenas now. Maybe to try to put Jesus back up again. But um, you took that away. You psychologically, and that's what LDM really did. That's like the biggest abuse in my eyes, in my opinion, was stripping away that story and putting it second fiddle to the story of Samuel or Nason. So going back to mass, it's like it's the repetition of the death of Christ every time there's mass, and every now in between, I've gone to a couple of them. They get a part of the scripture and talk about it a little bit, but it's the same format. There's no way. There's very little room for the person. I'm still learning if it's the deacon or the priest preceding the service, the mass, all these different names, and very little room for that person to say what they want to say, right? Because it's like, no, there's this order, we got to follow it, we got to do this order. There's all this. It's a spiritual performance in a way. I don't want to make it seem like it's a performance. That means it's da da da, but it's a spiritual performance. And that's something I've been really looking at it, really trying to experience that, understand that, because I'm coming from LDM. Again, I'm used to having a charismatic leader tell me all this and make this show with tears and waving and someone's in a song like all this stuff. When you pray, you can say whatever you want, and so you're free to even cry and speak your tongues, so to say, right? And here it's the opposite. It's like it's an order, and I think that's what we need. That's what, not only as an individual but as a society, especially here in the States, here in the West. When you derive yourself from God, and it's something I've spoken with some of my close friends, some that aren't from church, some that have left church, and some that never, were born in church. And we've had these kind of discussions about how important even religion is, how important even being in a structure, because the way I'm seeing it is like, if I want to have kids, right? If I want to get married, that's an example. If I want to find a girlfriend who can potentially be a wife and have kids and have a family and da da da, that also means I got to have a framework, some kind of structure, right? A framework where I can build upon that. So we have to have an agreement between the potential wife and me with potential kids and make them grow up. And then when you look at the data, it's like, essentially to thrive, to be, right, to thrive in this, in society, and is to get married, get a job, and have an education and be part of a community, right? One of the things that a lot of people tend to do, and I was one of those too, was let me help others, but I haven't even helped myself first. How can I change the world if I can't change myself, right? Here I am spewing words saying, you got to do this, you got to do that, where I myself haven't even done that. I'm telling the world what to do, and I haven't even done that to myself. That's very hypocritical. So it goes back to a saying that I heard from Dr. Peterson, saying like, start by doing your bed, to clean your room. Start from the smallest thing if it's so hard, and then work yourself up. Take these very small baby steps. I've had to do that with even my writing, because it's been a while. I'm having to, oh my God, I got to know my nouns, my frame, how to write a sentence, how to write a paragraph, how to write paragraphs, how to write pages, da da da. But small baby steps, right? And you try to move forward. And it's the same thing, I believe, following the school of these different thoughts that seem to have worked for many, many years, and seems like it'll still continue to work. Um, help yourself out first. Then what matters most after that is your family. So if you're married, maybe your wife, your husband, your kids. Me, I guess my siblings, my parents. That's what I've been doing. Your friends. And then hopefully after that, your community. It takes a community, it takes a village to raise a kid, as they say. So it's very important. And I think that's a lot of, from what I've seen, I believe even myself included, is we need to be part of some community, in order for us to strive as human beings. We're humans at the end of the day, right? Um, let's see. Back to my, uh, what does it say? Greetings, first time here. Hello, Raquel. David de la Luz. What happens when you ask someone from LDM to be honest with you? Very kindly, like, could you please be honest with me on how you feel? Well, it depends. What? I guess it depends what you mean. Honest with what? Like, here's the thing too, and I'm learning, is that you know there could be a lot of honest people, um, but there are also people who take advantage of honesty, or who mask themselves as honest. And I think one of those things is you have to find a way to. I think you need a bit of intuition with that, and some. I don't know what you mean with that question, but I think what you're trying to say is like, if someone from LDM can be honest with you. I'm not saying they're all. I think, coming at least from my experience, when I left this community here from Marietta/Atlanta and LDM, um, it was between the way I saw interact, because here I am. Here's the thing with me: born and raised in this church, here in this community. I grew up with these brothers and sisters. I know how, from when they were 25 years ago to maybe 5 years ago, right? Give or take. I saw how they, I grew up with them. They grew up with me. And I guess I can say that I could see both sides of people that were very honest within this church. And then also people who took advantage of other people's hard work and honesty. And I guess you get that a lot in a church, in a cult. So when you want someone's honesty, you got to first ask yourself, how honest are you with yourself, and how honest do you think that person is or can be? And then At least that's the first step I would take. Um, but usually you got to be genuine with yourself in order for them to be like, okay, he's really being honest about asking. So why not? And it's never hard to, I don't think it's that hard to ask someone when you're being honest about whatever. But again, it depends who you're asking too. So um, it's on an individual basis, I believe. So where was I saying? Back to mass. I'm looking at all these messages, trying to answer them. I'm at 49 minutes. I was thinking like an hour. We'll see. Um, so that's where I am. I'm now diving into Catholicism as a visitor, as a spectator, but at the same time, almost like there's something there. There's something with history, and I guess that's why it also caught my attention. History, but there's something powerful when it comes to history. People who follow soccer, who especially the Premier League or La Liga or the Bundesliga, the top flight leagues, when you see them in games, in very competitive games, whether usually let's put the Champions League for example, and they talk about the history of the club. When I first started watching, I'm like, what the fuck does the history of a club mean for them to win? I started really getting into it these last couple of years, and I started to understand, okay, history. There's almost like there's something alive behind this club that motivates depending on where they're at. They could have a bad start to the season, and I'll take example for Real Madrid a couple of years ago when they didn't have a good start in the group knockout stages. They barely managed out, and they ended up winning the whole thing by beating the champions of each team. And they kept saying the history of Real Madrid, the history of this and that, the history of this. And I'm like, okay, there's some truth. And I remember watching, I think it was a semifinal with a friend, and I was a neutral. I'm a neutral. I don't support them, but as a neutral, I was like enjoying the spectacle of Real Madrid and Man City and their comeback on the second leg. And I kept hearing the history, the club. And I'm like, okay, there's something there. They just pulled that off. They just beat them. They just turned their tides around. Even like the announcers were like, this is magical. This the hell just happened. It's the history of the club. It's the history of the club. And I think about, so I've translated that into, religion. Sorry, God. Let me use soccer as a way to get me into church, right? Into Christianity, into religion. And hey, whatever works, right? And I'm like, the history. Okay, so Catholicism, just as an example, because I'm there's also Greek Orthodoxy that they tend to have that battle between who was the first church, but I'm just using Catholicism because that's the one I've kind of been visiting and really paying more attention to that at the moment and seeing how, okay, the history of this church. There's a lot of bad and good, right? We're obviously, because it's not the institution itself, it's not the doctrine itself, it's the people at the end of the day. A cult and a sect is different because it's run by a charismatic leader, run by puppeteers behind that charismatic leader, sometimes, depending how big it is. And in my opinion, LDM is run by those puppeteers, especially right now. Nasona ain't doing shit right now. It's the guys behind them. And so I've paid attention, like, I've had to take out these arguments of like, God, well, Catholicism is only a lie because they have so much power and money, but they're not. Even when I went for the first time to mass, the second time really, the first time it was like a special event. The second time, I think I had an interaction with the priest and I spoke to him. I told him a little bit about my story, why I'm here, why I'm visiting them, and he was the opposite of LDM or of a sect like Jehovah Witness or the Mormons or Scientology. He was like, look, man, I'm not going to tell you to come here. You need to have this conversation with God. It felt really like he was like telling me, it almost felt like he was pushing me away from here. Like, go figure that out yourself. But in a very prudent way. But he did say, he's like, go talk to God. Tell him where he needs to guide you, and he'll show you the way. He didn't even tell me it was Catholicism. It's like, he even said if it's Catholicism or a different church, talk to him and he'll show you the way. I'm like, at the time, like, dude, this guy practically kicked me out. But I'm so used to having I grew up in the mentality that, oh, come here, even when I had an interaction with this guy, that really cool guy here that works at some secondhand apparel store, and I told him a little bit about my spiritual journey, because it's an apparel, it's a store that's kind of associated with some kind of Christian church, and even very adamant on almost like, hey, come hang with us, come hang with us. And here you got this priest telling me, like, go talk to God. So that really caught my attention. But I didn't even visit mass after that. It wasn't until, I don't even know when. It might have been a month or two after that that I really started to almost feel like the presence of God in my own way. And they say that maybe your conscience is God talking to you, and I'm starting really to believe that. Um, so that's okay. We got more messages out here. Bless your brother, bass. I'm still singing. I'm part of the KSU alumni choir, Mr. Red Melek or Mrs. Red Melek. I'm part of I love singing. I got the opportunity to I uploaded on my channel about I uploaded my channel that video of our choir back then when I was in college. I got this opportunity to be a have a solo, which I didn't expect. I remember having this hope, this kind of small little dream, like, man, wouldn't it be dope if I had a solo, if I could have a solo in the collegiate level? And hey, I guess dreams do come true, right? So I was just ecstatic about that. I'm like, damn, I guess I do have some kind of gift to sing. That I had an audition for it. Obviously, it wasn't given to me. I had an audition and I got that part. And as a bass, I was like, damn, check mark, please, let's go. It was more like a bass baritone part, but still, um, I was just ecstatic, and I'm like, okay, there's some purpose. That kind of gave me a little bit of light, that hope of like, that's still your thing. It wasn't because of LDM. This is just who you are. You love singing. You kind of have a voice. Just work on it, continue working on it, and who knows where it can take you. So right now, I'm like, all right, I miss singing after I graduated from college. So now I'm back to the college, but with the alumni choir, which is a bunch of elders, a bunch of definitely very alumni. We'll put it that way. But I love it, and hopefully, one of the voice coaches really has high hopes on me. But at the end of the day, it's on me on how much practice I put. But we'll see where it will take me. So when you said bass, I'm trying to represent you bases all over LDM and those that have left LDM. I'm doing my best to represent you all. Because there's no representation. Bass is just you're the foundation of the music, right? It's just you got tenors. Tenors and sopranos always get the limelight, right? Even in mainstream media. Not even altos, I suppose, in the mainstream media, but basses just don't get it's always just keep the beat, keep the rhythm, whatever it is. Even in a group of band like Coldplay, you got your bass player, just whatever, but very important. But we never get a shine that much, right? So that was pretty dope. So I'm doing my best to represent y'all basses. Let's see, diagnostic fix. Lara. Yes, man. What's happened to you? The light done. Se me fue lo güero. Ya no sé nada de inglés. I guess I gotta translate everything I just said to Spanish. I did say I was supposed to do that. I'm just so fluent in English. Este. I guess practice more English. I gotta practice more Spanish. And no, that's good. Eso fue lo más bonito. Lo bonito fue cuando me enteré que hay mucha gente que habla español y que ven mis videos. La mayoría sí son de México, de lo que veo. Entonces decidí, no, pues de una vez hay que hacerlo en español y ver cómo puedo mejorar. Hasta tomé un clase en español cuando estaba en la universidad, como fue uno de mis últimos clases, pero bueno, uno queriendo mejor. Yo como, queriendo mejorar mi español. Uh, as you can tell, it sucks. It needs a lot of work on, but we'll try. Let's see. Some good reads are Journeys Home by Marcus Grody and Rome Sweet Home by Dr. Scott Hahn. I don't think I've read any of them. I don't think I know them, but I'll definitely take a look into it because I am reading books too. Some self-help books. Not as many, to be honest. More on the reading about economics, history too. Haven't dived into fantasy because I think you need creativity, and I'm starting to realize that you need a little bit of everything, right? And creativity is one of those that, such as books of adventure, right? Fantasy, because you need that. Ellos jamás aceptarán la verdad, aunque lo lean, siempre lo torcerán Yeah, that's okay. Don't worry about it. I know what you say. Oh, thank God. Aunque en español está mejor así, no forzo mi inglés y no lo uso, lo poco. Can you understand me in English? And I can respond back to you in Spanish if we could do that. I'm just in right now, ahorita nomás estoy hablando con la gente que está ahorita en chat y quizás cuando lo dejo aquí en YouTube a los que van a ver, pero por el momento hablo más cómodamente en inglés, pero ay, de vez en cuando, en el principio empecé a hablar en español, pero am, luego los comentarios y las preguntas que tenía la gente en el chat, pues empecé a hablar en inglés porque vi, pues la mayoría me están hablando en inglés, me están escribiendo en inglés, entonces dije, no, pues a seguir en inglés, and I just got so into it. Uh, look up George Carlin stand up on religion. It's funny as hell. Oh yeah, okay. So I love comedy. Comedy is like a big thing. I'm still comedy. I'm too much of a I can't say too much. I play around a lot, even at work. I mean, I'm still doing my job. So at work right now, I'm a scenic sculptor. Right now, working for the movies. I can't say which movie, but I like to be very on top of my things, and I like to move a certain way. And I got used to it ever since the way I was raised by my dad. I was 5'4", I think even. I'll go with 5. He had me cutting grass. I started cutting grass at the church, the local church at the time. And ever since then, every summer I would help him out, or on the weekends on Saturdays too. So they were my cartoons sometimes, but he had me working in the summers. I got used to going to doing these landscaping jobs. So 12-hour shifts, 5-6 days a week became almost nothing at that time. Getting back to the groove at a different um, career path, something sort of similar to what I'm doing right now with scenic sculpting, but in the using cement. So cement sculpting, I suppose. And all of last year it was just traveling out of town, all out of town, all around the country. So that was a pretty great, honestly, beautiful opportunity to go different states, from Maryland to Philadelphia to DC to Washington to Webster, Texas, very recently, even in January. So very close to Houston at one point. I know there are a lot of brothers up there, down there. Um, where the hell was I heading with that? Um, Oil. I had a brain fart. It had to do with comedy. So anyway, all right. I have the work ethic, right? I have the work ethic. So, but at the same time, because I think I have the work ethic, I have like it almost gives me the excuse to fuck around a lot and joke around a lot. And George Carlin is one of those comedians that I like to listen to. George Carlin, right now, really, Dave Chappelle, Louis C.K. are my favorite comedians. There's a couple that I'm starting to listen to more, at least the current ones. George Carlin is a big one because of his influence. I'm forgetting. There's this. He's another big influence at the time. Oh man, I'm killing myself for this. He was a black comedian. He was known. There's a story that he ended up telling someone to tell Dave Chappelle to pass the torch to him. I don't know if you can tell me if you know who I'm talking about. But yeah, comedy is a big thing. I've always joked around a lot, even back in school, especially middle high school, and in work. So I I joke about anything, as you can tell in one of my videos, the shorts that I made. Uh, so I love comedy. You need comedy. It's the balance. It's that thin line between drama and comedy. The two face, you see the happy smiling face and the sad face, right? It's drama and comedy, and it's such a thin line. And that's what I love. I enjoy a lot. So yeah, I might have already listened to. I've listened to his takes on religion. Uh, I understand where he's coming from, and for a very short time, I guess I kind of believed some of the things he said. I definitely understand where he's coming from, but um, funny guy, hilarious dude. But he speaks a lot of truth when it comes to pretty much everything he said, even when it comes to religion too. Um, but like I was saying earlier, I think we need again, every individual is different. I will say that. I will say that. But for your average Joe like me, um, you need God. I think you need a good structure, uh, one way or another. Even a comedian like George Carlin always hung out with other people like him. It was his community. It was other comedians. Um, so I think even that is very important. Let's see. Oírlo entiendo, pero heme aquí, HQ. Oh man, I say, ¿cuál es tu tipo de voz en el coro? Bajo, tenor, bajo, bajo, bass all the way, bajo, barítono, más bajo. Um, pero, oye, apóstata. Cat Williams. Yes, I've actually listened to Cat Williams very recently, and some of his he's done a couple of interviews as of lately. I listened to some of his podcasts. What a very strange, yet I can't help but feel his truth. So I get that. Cat Williams, um, God, which one is the stand-up where he had a green suit? That was probably one of my favorite. I still quote some of the things he says from there. Uh, that's a very yeah. Cat Williams is a big guy, definitely. Very naturally talented, very naturally funny guy. Mark Norman, one of the newer guys, he's a very awkward kind of dude. He can't even look at you in the eye. He's got like this very he says that he has his social what was he saying? He can't really look people in the eye, but man, that guy's hilarious. He's one of those dudes too. Uh Pimp Chronicles. There we go. Thank you, Abraham. God, Father Abraham. You remember that? Father Abraham, how many kids? If you ever did that. Pimp Chronicles. Yeah. What I still every now and then I like to look at it, take a view and see how it's going. Snippets when it comes up on YouTube Shorts, I'm like just to get a good laugh. I remember when I was traveling out of town last year when I was up in Maryland with a group of my coworkers, we the first thing early in the morning, I would like to put on as I would stretch in the morning because it's very heavy work, and then I would put some comedians from Cat Williams to Dave Chappelle to Louis C.K. and to some of their comedians they like to watch, just to have a good laugh and start our day off really good. Uh, but yeah, Cat Williams, Pimp Chronicles. That's what a set that was. Hablar no sé, pero lo entiendes. Okay, chido. Bueno, chale, ya ni sé dónde estoy. Estamos en una hora ya casi 70 minutos. What time is it? Gotta go to work. I'm doing 12-hour shifts, working 6, maybe even 7 days a week right now. It's not like I got anything going on. 7:14. Johnny Cash. Oh, we talking about music now. Johnny Cash. You just said Johnny Cash. I don't know where you're trying to go with that. Oh, some good reads. So you're talking about reads and music. I guess so books to read, musicians to listen to. I got to get into some of the older American things. Johnny Cash, I hear a lot. Bruce Springsteen, but at the moment, what catches my attention, um, I've actually started listening to a lot of hymns, uh, choirs, but that's only because I'm using it as practice when I'm because I'm with the choir at KSU alumni choir, so I kind of have to hear the practice, and I got a coach making me. Well, it's up to me really to learn this one song and better my voice as an individual because we her and I we've set some goals for the future. So that's where my ear is leaning towards to at the moment. And but every now and then a little bit of Coldplay, some John Mayer, some hip hop like Kendrick Lamar, um, Leon Bridges, if you're more into that part. I think I have a playlist. Old classics, man. You got for me. I think I'm a romantic at heart, so I grew up with. I'm the oldest of seven, with the rest of them. They're sisters, so I grew up with a lot of females. So I have a little bit of that in me. Uh, so there's a little bit of romanticism in me, and yeah, Black Pumas is a big one that I like to listen to. Nathaniel Rateliff. I've gotten a little more into country, a little more homey, grounded music. Um, I believe that you are what you eat, you are what you consume, whether it be physically food and the music you listen to. And I've really tried to find a way to kind of balance it out. Every now and then, I like to listen to. I've definitely taken several steps away from reggaeton, just because even back then when I really liked dancing to and listening to it, even when I was in church, it was just like one of those things I was like, hell yeah, man. This has a beat. I like to dance. Let's get jiggy with it. But even the lyrics, I was like, just ignore the lyrics. These are fucking dumbass lyrics. Makes no sense. It's a repetitive thing. But it works, right? It's so popular. But I've really tried to even in that, maybe that's the overthinking in me, but I do believe you are what you consume, you are what you eat. So I'm trying to figure that out too. Every now and then I'll put in a nice what would you call it? A dirty song, perhaps? A Boy Named Sue. Red Hot Chili Peppers. That's a good band. That's a really good band. I'm spicy. I know it's very important. If you said, but I have to go with Colki está en vivo. Colki está. Is that a band? Colki. I got my Colki está en vivo. I still listen. I like to listen to Chayanne. Like I said, I'm a little romantic at that part. Colque está en vivo. Oh, Rafael. Um, is that who you're referring to? The guy that interviewed me? I think that's him, right? Yeah. Um, a Boy Named Sue. I don't think I listened to that. Pierce the Veil. I'm gonna have to look some of these artists and check them out. I like to always expand my horizon. Every now and then I get bored of listening to the same musicians and songs. I mean, it's very cozy, but it's like, all right, let's expand this a little bit more. Um, they say a lot of people like to say that modern music is dead or it's not the same as it was before. That's mainstream for sure. Mainstream music is, but you always can find bands. And that's not like the hippie liberal me saying it. It's just call me a conspiracist, but at the same time, there's everything that's done has a purpose. I believe this is where I stand. I'm a guy that believes that I'm smart enough to know that I'm dumb. That's probably one of my pillars of my framework of life is I know I'm smart enough to know that I'm dumb. Meaning there are a lot of people out there that are doing things that might not be a benefit for me. And the kind of guy that analyzes everything, including the music that we listen, the things that are right up on our faces, on our TV, on our phones. And I'm the kind of guy that likes to research and figure out why this, why that, why not this, why not that. Um, so that's my stance on that. So it's not like I'm being hippie about like, oh, you gotta listen to the smaller bands, da da da. Because I do believe there's still really good music out there. Um, one of my examples would be Black Pumas. What was the other? God, these names are really hard to memorize. These bands, like I said, um, Krongbing and Leon Bridges, those are very soulful. Maybe a little more on the sad side too. I like to stay away from that every now and then, but I do like their soulful music. Pero ya a terminar, pero ya va a terminar su en vivo. Maybe. I don't know how long I'll go. I guess we're approaching. Any other questions, concerns, preguntas, comentarios antes que I might give this another 15 minutes. We'll do an hour and a half. Um, a los que me están viendo ahorita, thank you. Great video. Misael. Um, what do I have? Have I already said everything I needed to say? Maybe. But it's always nice to see that there are people. It's nice and weird to me that I'm like, here I am talking kind of to myself, kind of not to people out there. And there's a part of me, I guess that might be the older brother in me. Um, because I'm the oldest of seven that always wants the best for my younger ones. And it's weird now because I'm sure a lot of y'all are older than me or around my age, and we don't know each other yet. We're still kind of connected in a way because of our back experience, right? Because we left LDM. Y creo que es una de las cosas que, and this is for you, because I'm speaking in Spanish, Mr. Diagnostic Fix. Una de las cosas que se me hizo muy difícil es dejar la comunidad. Lo bueno es que cuando dejé la comunidad de la luz del mundo fue que también por lo menos mantuve las amistades de otras personas que no eran tan metidos en la iglesia, pero sí creen o creían. Y, pero eran personas que, por ejemplo, no voy a dar los nombres, pero eran personas que a veces la misma gente de la luz del mundo, los mismos miembros le daban el ojo cuando entraban al templo porque eran, supongamos, personas que eran de mal ejemplo, pero con uno los conoce de lejos, ¿verdad? De lejos. Pero cuando uno lo conoce ya frente a frente como una persona, como un individual, pues uno ve la sinceridad de esa persona, los motivos detrás de esa persona. Y y por lo menos mantuve las amistades de estas personas y a la vez también, aunque crecí en una casa, digamos, más o menos estricto, en una manera, mi papá era muy estricto, pero a la vez tengo mi mamá que era lo contrario, entonces era más o menos un balance. Entonces tuve la oportunidad de mantener amistades aún fuera de la iglesia, bueno, los gentiles como ellos dicen. Entonces saliendo de esta secta, de esta comunidad, no me sentí tan así corto y pleno fuera de esta comunidad porque tuve y aún tengo estas amistades, los que tuve en la iglesia y los que tuve en la escuela también y tanto fuera en el trabajo. Pero una de las cosas que yo he visto es que es algo muy difícil cuando uno deja una comunidad porque lo bonito fue que cuando yo dejé esta comunidad tuve la oportunidad de, aunque hice esos videos, aún he mantenido mi relación con mis papás. Y más que eso, en lo que yo creo, en lo que yo siento y he visto también es que mi relación con ellos ha crecido aún más. He tenido esa oportunidad. Y una de las cosas que yo pienso y creo es que para conocerte a ti hay que conocer de dónde saliste. Like I said earlier, I came out of my dad's ball sack. So honor thy father and mother, right? They're literally the closest thing to God here on earth. And I say God because they're, in the sense for you guys to understand. They're the people that, gave birth to you. And they stayed with you and they did their best. And una de las cosas que yo vi de mi papá fue, bueno, mi relación con él es algo muy, pues, fue la persona muy estricta por el cual desde los 4 o 5 años, oh man, sorry, I'm getting desperate sitting here. My ass hurts. Guess I gotta do more squats. But una de las cosas que la relación que tuvo con mi papá fue una persona muy estricto, pero muy agradecido ahorita a mis 30 años porque es algo que me ha ayudado ahorita cómo moverme en el mundo debido a cómo me trajo y how he raised me. um, Being able to stand out in the sun. So if I'm able to, si yo puedo estar afuera trabajando por 12 horas como jardinero cortando zacate desde los 4 o 5 años cada verano y luego ir en diferentes trabajos, en diferentes compañías cada verano y luego en lo mío, pues ya cualquier cosa se te hace muy fácil. Y fue algo que quizás al momento no lo aprecié, pero ya uno ya, ahorita yo en mis 30 años, pues es algo que agradezco mucho y ahorita, pues más que eso, agradecido que aún tengo esta relación con mi papá, aunque tuvimos una plática hace algunos años que quería que se acercó conmigo y me dijo que muy, well, what would you say, diplomatically, very nice about it. Me preguntó y dijo que si podría yo parar de hacer esos videos. Y le dije, no, tengo que seguir haciendo esos videos. So I kept making them. And I know that, it hurt him y le dolió mucho, pero últimamente, I, when I say I listen to the stories around me, one of the stories that I'm hearing a lot is, the relationship with your dad, la relación con mi papá. It's very important. You see the data when, being grown, having two parents that are still together means so much in this time and age. It gives you structure and allows you to know that it can help you a lot towards your future. And that's something I've taken very serious as of lately. And my dad is someone he's the opposite of me. The guy that talks, lo contrario de lo que yo soy, que hablo de mis experiencias casi libremente a lo afuera, él es lo contrario. Conozco muy poco de él, pero últimamente, especialmente el año pasado cuando estaba afuera trabajando, tuve la oportunidad de hablar con él por teléfono y conocer un poco de su historia, porque de por sí soy su hijo y a veces, no sé, pero escuchando su historia me ha dado fuerzas de las cosas que yo he enfrentado en mi vida, pues no, pues lo que él enfrentó, lo que él hizo fue para mejorar a él, a su familia y a sus hijos. Y entonces pues siento como casi obligado de hacer lo mismo. Tengo esta relación con mis papás, entonces hay que, en mi opinión, am, mantener esa relación de una manera de ayudarlos. Y ojalá, si Dios quiere un día, encontrar una novia, una esposa, tener hijos y hacer lo mismo, porque creo que voy a lo que dije antes, es que antes de ayudar al mundo, tienes que ayudarte a ti mismo. Y es algo que yo estoy tomando mucho en cuenta. Entonces, viendo cómo para mejorar este mundo hay que empezar primero contigo. Y lo poco que yo sé de mi papá, porque es muy estricto, pero a la vez también no ha dado esa oportunidad de hablar tanto así, hasta últimamente. Entonces, ahorita muy bendecido en esa parte que he tenido esa oportunidad de hablar con él ah, en esa manera y viendo que él hizo su parte de romper esas barreras que él tenía en su tiempo. Y yo, pues, lo que yo puedo seguir en su legado, continue his legacy, is to do the same, to do my part. It feels like that's my purpose. Siento que es mi propósito porque veo que es lo que hizo mi papá, el esfuerzo de hacer ese cambio drástico. Y es por el cual yo veo, aquí es lo que donde yo veo como una secta como la Luz del Mundo llama esa atención, de esa parte es que puede cambiar tu vida. Y en parte sí. En eso sí puedo ver que, porque ahí está, yo veo las consecuencias, ¿ok? Entonces las consecuencias de mi papá, like Thomas Sowell, an economist would say, I see the consequences. And that's a frame of thought, a school of thought that I like to follow too, is the actions. Your actions speak louder than your words. Entonces, yo veo las consecuencias y es algo que la Luz del Mundo ayudó mucho a mi papá en esa parte. Lo bueno fue que pues él hizo esos cambios y vio um, que dentro de esa secta le podía ayudar a mejorarse como una persona. Um, en esa parte, lo contrario, como yo dije antes en vivo, fue que cambió lo malo y creo que lo peor que la Luz del Mundo hizo fue cambiar la historia de Cristo o ponerlo en segundo a la historia de la elección. That's like the biggest sin they committed in my eyes. Still the biggest sin. You took the myth. Well, I already said that. So, but you guys already understand that. So I think that's where I feel like I'm fortunate and blessed to still have my parents who still talk to me. It was still hard at first, especially with my dad. Um, and fue algo muy difícil también para ellos. Now, taking my part, I saw it in them too, how hard it was for them to have me as their son being this blasphemous, this apóstata, viendo como el hijo, my dad's son, el hijo de mi papá, el hijo de mi mamá, el apóstata. Ahí van los padres del apóstata. Y fue algo que mi mamá me contó, lo que fue muy difícil al principio, como ellos, los miembros de la luz del mundo daban ojo a mis papás, no querían hablar con ellos. Uh, Fast forward now, now you got people, you got kids, you got their kids, you got other people's kids leaving now, and now like they're understand, like, oh, now I understand. It's gotten better. It takes time. It's a hard beginning. Es algo muy difícil al principio, pero ya con tiempo, truth will always prevail, I believe. And I've still stuck to my truth. I still um stick with my experiences because I've been very, in my honest belief, I've been very objective about it. I've been very open and objective about it. So it seems to be like it's helping out a lot. A lot of y'all talking. Peace, bro. Oh man, we got more messages than I expected. Let's see, Abraham, peace, bro. As long as we have each other. Dang, how do I go and look at all the chat? Oh, I feel like a fucking Indian. I mean, I already have the descendants, right? My mom's. Okay, anyway. Nice to see you so far. Yeah, it's so close. Salúdame a tu oh, yeah, talking to each other. Cool. Yes, I'm very fortunate to have my parents. Your dad was the asshole. Well, if your dad's still alive, try to make amends. I say. I think it's you only have one dad, one mom, and I get it. It's hard. It's hard. Accountability is very, very hard. I know, as someone who looks in history and especially my own history, it's like, man, I really fucked up here. I'm like, how could I fuck this up so many times? How could I have been forgiven so many times in this situation yet continue fucking it up? So I'm here trying to. Here's the thing: set goals. What is your biggest goal, and set it really high, right? I believe that you could set it high, even if you don't achieve it. At least you have something really, and who knows, you might end up achieving it, right? Um, but it's a long, it's part of the journey, and I really believe, like, I mean, it depends how big of an asshole he is, right? Like, asshole, like, I don't want to get too personal with your stuff, but if your dad's still alive, because I know my dad was a very harsh person, and in some things I'm like, man, why would you do that? But here I am getting 30, and I am my dad's son. I am his genes. I am his direct descendants, and there are some of who he is in part of me, as well as in my mom too. Some of who she is in me, and it's up to me, as I say, to break that generational cycle curse. There's always some kind of cycle you have to break, and then hopefully your children get to break the cycle that you created. That's hopefully less than what you had, than your parents had, and your grandparents. And that's get the ball rolling, or it'll never break. You got to do your part, and it's the hardest thing. It's still hard to me. I'm like, I still got to do this. I still got to do that. But that's purpose, and purpose is better than happiness, in my opinion. Because happiness, hey, if you get it, great, enjoy it. That's the thing that LDM sells is happiness, pure happiness. But you can't live in pure happiness all the time. That's just ignorance is bliss. You're really being ignorant. You will have your happy moments, and that's the thing that LDM sells, and that's why people buy what cults and sects like LDM have, is they sell happiness. And people always like, why does life suck so much? And but okay, here's happiness. You give away your freedom, in exchange you get happiness, but you lose your individual self in a sense to follow whatever the cult leader has to say. And that's doesn't seem like a fair trade. That's, if anything, they're getting everything, but you get happiness. Cool. You get to fake happiness sometimes, and you get to see that too. Dude, you have come a long way from the first video you posted. Great job. Thanks. I cannot tell because it's me. And I'm like, and I look at back at the first video and I'm like, yeah, I don't know. It's harder to see from as you as yourself seeing these videos, right? God, my ass. I am getting a new chair. That's why I got this fucking stool. But I appreciate that. They don't talk to you? Okay, you're talking to each other. How does that feel, Celica? Your parents started to talk to you, and that's good. Um, it's either you have a really cold heart or they're severely indoctrinated by LDM that your parents will not talk to you. I, for one, I am very fortunate and blessed that not only did I leave LDM, I spoke against it, I wrote about it, and I made videos about it. And still, my parents still talk to me. They still talk to me back then. And after all this, what was it? 2019 was when I made the post on XLDM, and 2020 was when I made the video. So 4 or 5 years, and now we have a better relation. I feel like we have a better relationship. I talk to them more. We talk to them. We have breakfast. I try to. It's not the best, I still try to see them. Life is life. You get work. The way I work, it's kind of hard to see them as often as I would like, but at least try to show up with them, and it's very blessed. You don't. It's hard to how it's hard for me to understand not having them because I've always had them, even in the hardest moments when I made these videos. Um, Soy grangreña. Yeah, I get that. Hopefully they understand soon. No es fácil. Yo la primera vez que me salí no aguanté en el mundo y regresé al año y luego después de otro año cuando regresaron a soñar. Va que sí, es muy difícil. No, no, es porque así es así funcionan los cultos, las sectas. Te tienen programado de regresar. Y fue por el cual yo hice mi canal para que cuando llegara ese momento de que yo quiero regresar, y sí llegó ese momento, ha llegado esos momentos de que, man, estaría chido regresar nuevamente a esa comunidad y charlar con la gente, porque fue algo que aun cuando yo estaba en el coro, cuando era tanto como miembro como director también, teníamos, no era así como una persona seria, hacíamos chistes aún en los estudios, but we got things done too. And the video, that one short that I made about me mocking whoever, I guess people like to interpret Daniel Nunez, and I can see that definitely. For me, he's an easier one to interpret. Um, I did that with these members. They would do it. I learned it really from these members who are still part of church. I'm like, oh, they're fucking around. I'll fuck around too. Let's make some comments. Let's just have some fun. But also, yes, God, yes, Jesus, yes, the Son, somewhere, whatever it was. But ha ha ha, right? Um, but yeah, I saw some of the comments. I'm like, oh, everybody has their own interpretation. I'm mocking more the person than God and religion. I'm mocking the dude, but I don't care. I'm just saying it right now. Uh, let's see, your gangreña no es el único es mi papá. Hey, you have at least one of two. There are some people that don't have both their parents, and I'm not gonna say your dad is bigger than your mom in the sense that one is greater than the other, but a father figure is so important. It even talks about in the Bible having father figures. It's talked about everywhere. Maybe people who have lost their fathers, they find some kind of father figure in martial arts. They find a father figure in some kind of philosophy, a school of thought, a father figure that can help you. There's always room to learn, and it's important to have someone to teach you. So, hey, continue having that relationship. Uh, Humble yourself. Remember, one day maybe you'll have kids, and you don't want to be in the situation that you are now, 30 years from now, or 25 years. If you can find a way to kind of break a cycle, that seems to be part of the purpose as a human being. It seems it's just slow progress, right? Um, they are very indoctrinated. My dad is a pastor. Good Lord. That's a little harder. Yeah, that's hey, I wanted to be a pastor too. I just couldn't because that was my it was one of my things, but this is when the point that my turnaround was happening. 2014 was what really broke me in terms of almost breaking reality. But yeah, your dad a pastor. Hmm. Yeah, I can't really speak from that experience. None of my parents were. My dad at one point was a choir member, but other than that, my mom was a choir member. A pastor, that's a different animal. That is tougher. Because there's that loyalty towards the apostle. There's the loyalty towards the apostle. There's the fact that your career revolves around being a minister. Um, because if your life has been all about being a minister, then what set of skills do you really have if you were to leave a cult like LDM? Good public speaking skills. There's that. I know I learned that when I was doing pro wrestling and learning how to. I stopped because I got an injury. I was like, whoa, maybe this isn't for me. That's a lot of self inflicting pain. But one of my biggest uh, gifts, I guess I can say, dones, as I would say, was talking on the mic, being able to get into character. And that's something that LDM gave us, being able to talk up in a pulpit, talk up in taking prayer, being in charge of groups like me. I got to be in charge of different groups. That was an opportunity for me to expand on my public speaking skills. And so at least there's that if you were to ever leave. But it's definitely a different, you're tackling a different animal when it comes to your dad being a pastor. And if you're saying pastor, like PE, Pastor Evangelista, oh man, that's hmm. Well, if you, all I can say is if you ever need to talk to someone, I'm here. There's not much I really can say, I feel like, but, and it's hard to create a community that's left because everybody is almost in their own paths, right? Everyone is in their own journey, in their own belief system, some believing in God, some not, going from one extreme to another. But I say, I don't know if I have advice for that because the best advice I can give is maybe working on your. I know one of the things that I've been doing is working on myself, trying to and by working on myself is also like how do I be a better son, um and somehow that's kind of bandaged a wound that my dad had and bridged now a stronger connection relationship with him that I'm still forever grateful to have. um, Now he calls me for advice in some things, which is I'm not used to. That's never been my thing. I'm the son. I'm supposed to go up to my dad. But that tends to be that's the case when you start reading history. The stories that tends to be now. There's almost like a switch in some sense. So I can only give you what I've experienced. And it's like because I kept that relationship and I've tried to do, I've done my part and what I can do, what feels like my purpose in a way, or finding myself in this journey. But at the same time, also like, how do I honor my father and my mother? How do I be a good son? So it's like, okay, I got to, I've done small things. They're not drastic, big things. I'm like, hey, dad, you need help with this? Very small things, uh, very small changes, but it goes a long way, especially the way, it's first knowing who your dad is, how your dad or your mom, how they are. I'm like, what can move them? Okay, this is how my dad can appreciate my appreciation is by doing this. So I do that. Um, but yeah, it's a different animal, I will say. No es fácil, pero entre más tiempo pasa, más se acostumbra uno al ser mundano. Te das cuenta que siempre fuiste mundano desde el principio, pero no todo. No todos son malos. Yes, I agree. I would say he knows, but that's his job. Yeah, I think a lot of ministers are saying that, and it's their job. I maybe not everybody, but maybe a good number. Tu papá es pastor. Yeah, yes, I'm the black sheep. Yeah, I was the black sheep too. Not sure if I still am. I don't think they even consider that anymore. But being the black sheep is I was never the black sheep growing up in my family. I was until very recently when I left church. I was always like the this is how this is how good of a kid I was. And it's weird to say it that way. I don't view it that way, but I guess actions speak louder, right? Um, I was the kind of kid that whenever we would have activities with other young people, like we're gonna go bowling, for example, or go out to eat, like who's going? They would involve my name. And they're like, "Oh, Peñita. Oh, el hijo de fulano de tal. Oh, Abisai. Hell yeah, go ahead." It got to the point that I would call back when I was 14. I used to call this sister to talk to her daughter so that she could talk to my friend. Because if my friend would talk to the mom to ask permission to talk to the daughter, the mom would be like, "Fuck no." But because it was me, she's like, "Oh, of course. Hey, daughter's name. Go talk to Abisai is on the phone. Talk to him, da da da." And I was like, "Oh hey, whatever. We have a 30 seconds." I'm like, "All right, the guy's on the other phone. Go do your thing, whatever." That was the kind of kid I was. My name was thrown out. They're like, "Oh, everything's fine." Um, so I was the opposite of the black sheep. I was the exemplary sheep, right? And it wasn't until when I made the videos that huge, it was like you like fell off of that. It was a complete turn. Now I was like oh, don't hang out with him now. You know, I didn't really sense it that much with my parents, but it was a dynamic that I wasn't used to. It's weird being the black sheep. It's coming from like, the guy that was the white sheep, I guess. Um, it's not. It's a weird situation to be in. So my condolences. My dad is a pastor too. Good Lord, yeah, many pastor kids here. We are the community. If I can support you, the next man will. Greetings from Las Vegas. Oh, you're from Vegas. Yeah, I had Ucier too, huh? We had Ucier. That was nice. The city of Sin City. Is that what they call Vegas? Never been there yet. That would be nice to visit. Um, but yeah, we got pastor kids out here. Good to see. Good to know. Um, that's always a different dynamic too. I'm curious about how. I don't want to get. I mean, you guys are on the chat, so I don't want to ask too personal about like, well, how long, what time did y'all leave and all that? Because I guess it's everybody has their reason why and their time until when they can talk and say whatever they need to say, right? I think there's a few chats, a few of them that I was missed, right? I guess not. I guess that's just about. Really, I can't figure this computer out. I don't really I'll use my hands more. That's my job. I'm never really on the laptop. On the laptop, I'm a hands guy. Even as a choir director, it was always hands. Even at work, it was all hands. Everything I do is a lot with my hands, minus a computer. For some reason, a Mac is completely different from any other kind of laptop. But where are we? 140. Yeah, we passed the time I was supposed to be at. But hey, it was nice talking to you all. Trying to figure out. I think there was something else I wanted to say. It had to do with the father, the importance of your father. I'm only saying that because it's my own experience. If you can, man, can if you still have that chance, talk to your dad, talk to your parents. It's so important. Um, I'm very recently realized this. And if not, involve yourself in a community. That's one of the things I know. I grew up very extroverted. When I was raised in this, I grew up. When I say I grew up with this community, I literally mean I grew up as in sometimes after church, my dad would be the one that would drive. Who would after church, he would just go straight home, and I'd be left alone. I would play around with with the brothers' kids. I would stay for after activities. I found a lot of life in the community of LDM. And that was one of those things that just by, I guess, by chance, just because of that, I would ask rides from different brothers and sisters. So I got to see the dynamics of different relationships, different families. And at the same time, I grew up with them. I grew up with a lot of these brothers and sisters. Um, they would invite me to their houses, their food, go out for whatever. Um, and it's a hard thing when you leave all that behind. It was a hard thing for me. And here's the thing, especially when you were in charge of all these things. Um, I was put in prueba uh, before I left church uh, for X, Y, and Z reason. But I remember w- two things. When I was first put in prueba, the minister at the time was Jose Hernandez, and he asked me a very weird question. His tone of voice completely changed, because he said, when a minister puts you in prueba, they start giving you advice, da da da, the Bible. But one thing he said out of that, he changed his tone of voice. Everything of his demeanor changed when he looked at me in the eye. He's like, "But do you believe you deserve this?" It was almost like he was like feeling me out. Like, "Hey, we don't have to. We can work ourselves out. We can work a way out in which you can still be part of church." And still have this position if you understand this game. It gave me that vibe. But and they caught me and I was about to say, nah, man, I don't deserve this. Keep me up in choir. Y'all need me here. That's how I felt. And I think that's how he felt too. Um, and I guess for good reason, because even when I got dropped off of choir, a lot of people there were at the time I think at least 5 people in the first week dropped off choir because I stopped directing. They're like, "Man, if you're not in charge, I don't want to be in choir." I was like, "Damn, you're not serving me, you're serving God." But I guess it was because the way, and it's one of those things. I loved the community of the choir too. I remember being in choir one day having practice. We did our hour and whatever it was, and I'm like, "All right, we're done." And everybody in studies was like, "No, let's keep going. No, we're doing good. Let's." That caught me by surprise. I was like, "Dang, you want to stay another half hour?" Like, shoot, we could do another hour. I was like, "Fine." So I miss that. I miss that community, and it's really hard. But even, once Oscar Gonzalez was the minister at the time, and I told him, "Hey, my time's up in prueba. Um, you think uh, what can we do about it?" And the minister was like, whatever you did before, you have all those blessings back again. We'll put you back up again. I'm like, this was like maybe this was the month. This was 1st or 2nd of August of 2019 when he gave me that. When he told this was right before he left to Guadalajara. He's like, "Hey, whatever blessings you had before, you have them all back." I was like, "Oh shit, choir director in charge of the youth, in charge of whatever, I was in charge." And I thought about it, and I remember telling this to 2 people in church, and they got really excited, like, "Holy shit, you could be our choir. We can get back up again." Well, yeah, serving God, not me. But I was given the opportunity to do that again. And I remember getting excited. I'm like, I can do this again. I but it was also one of those things I'm like, am I gonna have to fake it? And that's one thing I don't like. I don't like faking stuff. And that's why that was another reason why I left. I'm like, I can't fake this anymore, especially when Ldm took service that Santas and I was like, all right, I'm fucking done with this shit. Goodbye. I can only fake it so much. Even when I was interpreting, I was faking it, but because it gave me purpose and I was pretty good at it, I'm like, why not? I still get to, it was still for that, I was sort of faking it for a year. It was still like kind of like on limbo, but that one broke me when I was like, Halorim taking it and then him being in jail. I was like, what's my whole point now here? But I had the opportunity to get back up again and I just couldn't. I remember having that thought back then. I'm like, if I am to fake it, how long am I going to fake it? Do I have to fake it all the way up until I have my own kids? How am I going to teach these kids? Am I going to teach my kids to and tell them, hey, Nason or Adoreim, whoever the next dude is going to be the apostle. Am I going to teach them that this guy is a better father than me? That whatever you know is because of him and not because of me and your mom? And that was my thought process, trying to look very far into the future. I'm like, I can't do that. I'm out. I just couldn't do it. So but that was also like one of the reasons that I found hard too was the community. I found a lot of it was a good sense of community, at least with the choir that I was working with. It was nice. It was beautiful. This is where I found a lot of great relationships, met a lot of great people, even out of state, out of country, going to Guadalajara, doing all these choirs. I met people that were life changing to me, and I wouldn't take any of that back. And I wouldn't change any of that. And that was one of those beautiful things was the community that it provided. Choir, especially choir, and I'm concentrating just on choir because even in the whole scope of LDM as a whole community, there are even sub communities. The preachers, those are in the obra, those are in choir, those are in the kid, whatever. There's subcategories, sub communities, and choir was a big one because it's a spiritual and a material thing. More spiritual in the sense of the importance and how they viewed it, even how they mentioned that the choir is right next to the minister, right under or around where the apostle is, because of how important they are. And they made that huge emphasis. So I took that pretty serious. Um, but in terms of being around with choir members and other choir directors and other assistant choir directors was one of the most beautiful things. And it's a hard thing. So I do encourage you guys, you all, and myself, whenever I talk like this, I like to, it's like it's like I'm talking to myself because I want, you know, I can't say stuff like that if I'm not doing it on my own. I think if I can't do it on my own, if I'm saying this out loud, it means like I also have to be the one doing it. And I feel like, and I believe that finding a good community is very necessary. So when you're looking for goals, working out your future, you got to work out your past, figure out the framework, and try to find something that you like. For me, I'm slowly dipping my toes back into, let's say, the real world, right? Other than work, other than going out to eat, those are like my favorite thing is food, Thai food, finding good food anywhere, finding new spots. I'll go out of the state for good food. That's how much of a foodie I am. Um, you can find a community there. One of the things I found was the choir community. It was something it's always called me, and one of my proudest moments was having my dad being proud of me, and that's one of the things that he's never really said. That's how strict he is, and to this day, I'm actually very happy that he's like that because it's made me always want to push myself harder and take it to the next step. Um, so I remember my mom telling me like, "Damn, your son." I remember my mom saying that my dad said, "Wow, I guess my son really has this gift." It was a moment of pride that I'm like, "Damn, it's the first time I felt something like that." And it wasn't even anything related to LLDM. Um, that really just touched my heart. And on that part, and as well as like, okay, there's a community out there too. So if you can and that was what one of the struggles, the dilemmas I had was, did I like choir because of Samuel, because of LDM, because I directed all this energy of that, or is it because it's a part of me? And I was able to, and I believe it's because it's who I am, and I just used that gift, that purpose, and directed it towards church and LDM. And now, I'm using it, um, singing in my college choir, the alumni choir, which we have a performance if you want to check it out. It's in Kennesaw State University. If you want to check it live, I think they do live things. Um, but find a community. Find by that, if you're struggling, find at least one thing that you really like, that you enjoy doing, and you can from there you can stem and God knows how many doors can open from then on, right? Um, Especially if it's a good thing, because there could be bad things too. I believe that like that's leading to a dark path. Um, so if anything, because I know I felt that loneliness. I was this extroverted person that when it finally broke me, I became very, what's the word? I definitely lacked a lot of confidence and felt very lonely. Um, But just I don't know. I have no idea how I'm still alive and I've made it through moments of suicide ideation to that point of almost committing it. And here I am, alive and breathing. And now I'm trying to, as I told you all. So I feel like find a community that gift you have or that interest you might have. You might not even be good at it. So what? We all start from nothing. I couldn't speak a lick of English or Spanish when I was a kid. I had a lisp. I had a speech impediment, and I think you can kind of hear it every now and then when I speak. Um, and I worked myself through that. It's just a lot of work. It's a lot of work. You're your own sculpture. You're your own statue. You gotta. No one else is gonna. If someone else was to sculpt you, it would be on their own form. You have your own tools. Find your own tools and sculpt the way you want it. But the way you do it is by we're standing on the shoulders of other giants, as I think Thomas Jefferson once said. So there are a lot. What you know is because of what other people have done. Where you're at right now is because of the sacrifices of other people. And I'm very grateful being here, even in the States, because of the sacrifices of the previous generations. And to preserve it, I got to do my part too. So I think that's involving in some kind of community, um, because potentially who knows, maybe you'll make it to 80 and you want to have a good life. And by a good life, I mean a life full of purpose. So if there's any advice I can give, I guess it's that. Let's see. Saludos, Misael. When they are desperate, they will approve anything. My mom received the Holy Spirit. Ooh, the Holy Spirit. That's another good one. But all right, we're approaching 2 hours. I have 12-hour shifts this week again. So I got work and other activities. Back to choir Monday. So it was nice. I wanted to try live just because never done it. And I don't know where this channel may go. If I'm being honest, I don't know where it might take me. I did have in mind maybe a couple more LDM videos, and then from then on, either I stop or I'll continue doing other stuff. I don't know. I really don't know. But I really at least wanted to try live, talk to the people who have, for some reason, subscribed and followed me, even though I never asked for it. I never said, "Hey, subscribe and like this video and follow me and da da da." But I at least wanted to thank you all for, I don't know, supporting me. And those words are encouraging. There are a lot of other discouraging words that I've seen, but the encouraging ones are the ones that I always look forward to, and I appreciate, and that connection that we have from the people that I've chatted with, from Celica, Raquel, Abraham, Chas, Diagnostic, all you guys, and the ones that are yet to see. I appreciate you all, and I wish you all the best. And there's a lot of work to do. Work on yourselves. I'm working on myself. I think that's the way forward. And listen to our surroundings, and who knows, we'll find our way with a purposeful life. I don't really believe a life of happiness, because a life of happiness, if you want a life of happiness, you kind of have to be kind of ignorant, and might as well go back to the sect, right? You'll find happy moments in life, but it's purpose, I believe, I think. I don't know, expand your horizon, read books, figure out what fuels truth hurts, and I think that's where you got to follow it, and you'll find yourself out there. I'm not going to tell you which books, which people. That feels very indoctrinating on my part. Every now and then I like to share like something I feel like there's a connection there, like I've done through my community tab on YouTube. Like, oh, look at this video, this feels like something that can be related, but I don't like to push an agenda. Got in, right? Everyone on their own and individual, and finding out, you got to push yourself. The only way you know yourself is by pushing yourself. And you'll see just how far you can get. I didn't think when I was young, I would have a collegiate level experience of singing in choir and potentially joining a bigger choir. But here I am. You won't know until you try, and you really got to try. That's based off my own experience. So yeah, I do wish you all luck, and I thank you all from the bottom of my heart. I mean this sincerely. Thanks for y'all's support, y'all's love. And the funny shit that I read every now and then, from your names to the comments, that's I like to fuck around. I like to joke around a lot. That's a part of who I am. And You need comedy. You need that. You need comedy and art in your life. I also believe to have some fun every now and then. Obviously, in accordance, I believe limits. Who knows? This is your life. Go figure it out. Go figure your life out. You know. But I believe if you see stories, if you read stories, whether it be in movies, in books, um, the testimonies of other people, you're going to start to see a cycle, and you're going to see, oh, if I do this, it's going to lead me eventually to that. But if I do this, it could lead me to that. So just do that, and you'll find yourself. And I think eventually you'll find God, because it seems like that's where I'm heading with in my journey. So good luck. Bless you. God bless you all. Peace be with you all. May the Lord bless you all. I'm not mocking God. I'm mocking these the members. But honestly, thank you all, and good luck. Uh, Peace be with you all, and we'll see where this goes. We'll see where if I make a couple more videos. But until then, thank you all, and until next time, I suppose.